All right, welcome to the SNG Weekly Wrap-Up. It's May 10th, and we are talking UFC today. As promised, we're doing not football today. We're doing UFC. And Joe, you bought the pay-per-view last night, or did you find an illegal stream? Be honest.
I bought the pay-per-view. I'm a supporter of the UFC. I try not to illegally stream. And my good karma was it left me in darkness in my room. The light has been stricken from my room. And for supporting, the hand-to-hand, face-to-face, blood-to-blood combat of yesterday. And I think we're going to look at that as a political point more than a sports point one day.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, when we view this video back in a few years, we'll think about it like that. One thing I do want to just mention is we are presented by SNG Network, sngnetwork.com. Go check them out. If you wanted to bet on the fights last night, you could have gone to sngnetwork.com, found the right spot to go bet on it, and made yourself some money. I went 5-0 on my main card picks.
I went 4-1. I won a lot of money though because I had Cejudo first round knockout. I'm sorry, I had Francis first round knockout, and I had Gaethje obviously. Lost on Jeremy Stevens, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I was 5-0 across the board. I decided not to put money on it, though, because I'm a fool, and I work for a gambling company, and I decided not to bet on it because I wanted to just enjoy the fights. I wanted to enjoy, we had live sports, watching with my cousin, so it was good. Let's talk about the prelims real quick. Let's get that kind of out of the way, and then we'll do each fight. We'll go through it. But the prelims happened, Joe. You did not watch the prelims.
I didn't watch the prelims. I was not home. I thought I would be home for it, but I was not. My guy Cowboy lose again.
Yeah, I know exactly. I missed probably the best prelim fight. The one you see the picture there, but the dude's eye all covered up, and I don't know if he won or lost. I don't really want to know. I'm just gonna take it as fact that he won because it's a cooler story if he won. So I don't really care about that one. There were three very controversial decisions, Joe. There was Esparza got the win over Watterson, Olynyk, I think, over Verdun, and Pettis over your guy, Cowboy Cerrone. And all of them were very questionable. They for sure could have gone either way. We thought the judges were going to have maybe a hand later in the main event or the main card. But it ended up just being that the refs were the one, or Herb, not Herb Dean, the guy before Herb, whatever his name.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name either.
Yeah, but everyone knows Herb because Herb always lets fights go on,
right?
As long as they.
Spoiler alert.
Well, maybe not with the Ferguson one. Maybe. I think we could debate that one. But yeah, with the prelims, I just want to say, in my opinion, I think this was the best prelim card that UFC has ever had. I think they wanted to go all out for this fight, and they did. I mean, all of these fights were awesome. They all went the distance. They all really could have gone either way. Probably the only one that wasn't good was the Watterson fight. They kind of just danced around the ring the whole time, and that was why she didn't win. But the rest of them, I thought they were great. And I think there is debate there. Was this the best prelim card ever? Because you didn't have a single dud, really. So that was good. But let's get into the main card, the reason the people are here, the reason the people are listening. We'll start off with Hardy versus the Castro. Hardy won by unanimous decision in obviously went the full 3 rounds. I thought the Castro was going to win this fight from the onset, but then he got hurt there, right?
So I guess he broke his foot. That's what they were saying.
Did he break his foot? Okay.
I mean, it was weird. I honestly forgot it even went to decision because it just felt like Hardy, like at some point, KO'd him because there was just no action from him. Kind of similar to the Adesanya fight from the last main UFC event. This fight stunk. I think it's probably the best case scenario for the UFC for Greg Hardy to keep winning. I thought he actually looked good. I think if he was challenged more, he actually would have still won.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a great job of kind of being defensive. But yeah, this was definitely the worst fight on the main card, even though it went the distance and was the only one decided by judges. But yeah, it was pretty brutal.
It was definitely the worst fight. I think it had my favorite moment, though, when Castro was laying on the ground, probably because it was so hard to get up with the broken foot, and Hardy was just punching at his legs, and then he just turned around and was like, "Let's effing fight!"
Yeah.
Like, just get up, basically. I thought that was a pretty great moment. But yeah, this was a really boring fight. Like we said, like Castro. Here's my problem with the heavyweights. Let's make it about this real quick. He just looks so out of shape, and it was so hard for him to move around after that first round. This is my problem with heavyweight fights just in general. If there's not a quick knockout, it ends up just being the most boring fight on the card, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's cool. It's kind of like a relatable thing. Like, oh, look at this pudgy guy. You know,
Yeah.
when you're going against an NFL defensive end, it's just a major discrepancy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in just style difference and in size. But
And then the other thing, real quick, and then sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the other thing was that John Anik mentioned that while Greg Hardy was playing, he fluctuated between being 265
yeah,
pounds
I saw that in
and 315. Is that true?
I didn't know he ever played nose tackle. I think that's what he was kind of alluding to.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
But sorry, I cut you off on your point.
No, that was it.
You're okay. Yeah. So well, let's move on from that one. The only thing we'll say is Greg Hardy's now 6-2. DeCastro falls to 6-1. But I would assume, like you, that Greg Hardy is going to start to become a face that's going to be a contender in that heavyweight division, if he can keep himself from getting disqualified. So let's go to the Kattar versus Stevens fight. Kattar wins by TKO with an elbow at 2:49 of round 2.
Yeah, tremendous placement. I mean, that
it was
perfect,
unreal. And this was the thing, you know, we had talked about last week with Stevens just kind of absorbing blows, but I love the way he fights. He's 28-18 now in his career, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
You know, compared to a lot of these other fighters. But I love the way he fights because he just goes nuts, and then it's like he's either gonna win or lose, but he very rarely lets it go to decision.
Yeah, love my Northeast fighters. So, fortunately, I bet on Jeremy Stevens, mostly because I didn't want to go for all favorites with Gaethje even. I thought maybe someone would sneak in that first three, but I thought really just in terms of the fundamentals, I mean, that was like as good of an elbow strike as you're going to see. I mean, it was just really great. And two really picture perfect knockouts kind of back to back. This card really had everything. You know, it had the you know, long standing, tough stamina based fights, and it had the knockouts. I think this was just a total win for UFC.
That's what was incredible about this card. And I think there was probably a lot of people, myself included, who bought this fight that maybe wouldn't have bought this fight if we were, you know, in the middle of the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs and there's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
They might not have even gone to a bar to watch the fight. And I think to put out a card like that, like I watched it with my cousin, and he had never watched UFC before, really. He'd watched, you know, 1 or 2 fights. He watched last night. He's like, I'm a fan. I love this. I could, you know, keep watching this. And I think they probably gained a lot of fans last night because it really did have everything, and it appealed to every single style of fight. And then you mentioned like the Hardy fight was the most boring fight of the night, and it wasn't a bad fight. Like it still
it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, it should have been better. I mean, obviously the first round looked like it was going to be a real fight, but I mean, these things happen, and luckily it was the first fight of the main card, and it wasn't, you know, the title fight or interim title fight.
So how does this work where Jeremy Stevens came in 4.5 pounds overweight? What's the point of having a weight if you're still allowed to just fight at the end?
I wish I knew. I mean, that did seem weird. I thought the fight was going to get scrapped because of that.
Yeah.
Somebody else has to tell me about that. I'm not really sure.
Because that's a lot. It's not like when it's a half pound or something. Like that's a lot of weight. So that was pretty surprising there. But yeah, do you have anything more on that fight?
Not on that fight.
Okay, so let's go to Ngannou versus Rozenstruik. I don't know. It's whatever. I'm not going to say those names right. They're up there on the graphics. So, but Ngannou, I think Ngannou. Well, who cares? But he won by KO. He had a great punch at 20 seconds of round one, and it did not ever, even just stepping into the ring, you knew exactly what was going to happen with this fight.
Yeah, it was one of those fights that just makes UFC look easy almost.
Yeah.
Like just totally knocking him off balance. And I mean, I think this was the 10th fastest knockout in UFC history. I mean, just total domination. And I always feel like a little bit cheated when I only get to see 20 seconds of a fight. Like with McGregor, although you saw whatever was 11 seconds of a fight. But once you just keep watching over and over, you're just like, oh my god, like this is just, you can't find this anywhere else. And I thought it was well worth the money. And again, another just win for UFC because you had everything. And I think, he was Francis was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently. We're going to talk a little inside job.
You're smarter than I am, by the way, for just calling him Francis. I should have just been doing that the whole time. Call him Francis. I mean, it's but yeah, I mean that's a little collusion there. Well, what did you think about Daniel Cormier like commentating on the fight? Is that normal?
I don't think it's normal, but at the same token, if you were paying attention to The Last Dance last week, they had Magic Johnson in the booth during playoff games that he was active in. So I don't hate it. And it's like when we get who do we get?
Greg Olson.
Yeah, Greg Olson. And who in the MLB? What do you get? Like Adam Jones or someone? Who does the playoffs?
No. Oh yeah, it is Adam Jones. It is Adam.
Is it
Jones.
Adam Jones?
Yeah.
In the studio. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. The funniest thing was the Hardy fight, actually, to keep going back to that, but where Hardy credited Daniel Cormier when he said he could hear him commentating and said he's got to start checking the kicks. And then he like immediately checked the kick and broke to Castro's foot.
Well, that was, I think they were saying it with in the title fight. They're like, they can hear us, right? Yeah, they can definitely hear us. I loved it with no fans, by the way.
It was great.
No fans.
It was great.
Totally better with no fans.
And that,
the hit sounded so much nastier. The coaching was great. I think if you're a fighter, it's a little bit weird because, I mean, you really don't have any kind of, like, you can't hide your coaching strategy, but I'm pretty sure you can hear it anyway in the octagon. Like, I don't think it matters whether there was fans there or not. I thought it was great.
I'd say the only knock against no fans is that this went pretty much all scratch. Like, it was all the favorites won. And you wonder if, fans could have helped some underdog.
Yeah, well, except Gaethje. And the intros weren't as good, obviously, but Buffer still brought it. And I thought it was fine with no fans.
I thought it was great. I'm with you. I thought it was preferable with no fans. My ideal situation to watch UFC would be that, but in a bar with a bunch of people. So that way, like, I'm surrounded by fans, quote unquote. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic that way. The other thing I want to say about Francis is he had gotten called out for this fight by his challenger. I'm not going to try to say his name again, but his challenger falls to 10-1. But Francis clearly, like, you could tell, just even in the lead-up video, the intro video they were showing, he was pretty respectful about what he was saying about the guy, but he was also like, I don't even understand why this guy called me out. He's not a good fighter. He's like, he'll be there one day, but I just had to come and kind of beat his ass. And
I don't think this card needed a lot of like pre-fight, trash talk in any way for any of the fights, just because it was going to be focused on regardless.
Yes. Yeah, totally. But I enjoyed that. All right, so let's get to the two big fights of the night. You've got your two title fights here. We'll start out with Cejudo versus Cruz. Cejudo wins by TKO, a knee at 4:58 of round 2 to win and hold on to the bantamweight belt. Immediately retires after the fight. But the first thing we have to talk about, and it's something that you and I both posted about, his walkout song. How can you walk out to Lupe Fiasco?
I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt. He's been fighting so long. It might be just some good luck, which is fine. You need the good luck. There's no fans, so again, no judgment. Hardy had a pretty bad song too.
Yeah, he did.
As did Ferguson. I don't like an obscure like freestyle song.
Yes, that he was just like dancing to as he
so none of the music was great. I mean, nothing's better than McGregor's Irish music.
Yeah, Sinead O'Connor. Yeah.
But yeah, this was a tough one for Cejudo. I thought for sure he was going to lose after that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I know what you're going to say about it. Was Cruz Should he have been called, as a KO and have called the fight? I actually think they should have. I don't really think he was making much of an attempt. I think there was an attempt, but that fight was going to be over a couple seconds after.
Yeah.
This is one of those cards where you have to err on the side of caution a little bit more. And, he wasn't in good shape, I don't think there. And I know Joe Rogan was quick to kind of, criticize. But I have to imagine they made the right decision there. I mean, how much longer would that fight really have gone on?
Yeah, I guess the thing that really maybe ticked him off, and for me as a viewer, I would have liked to see there's only 2 seconds left in the round.
I understand,
and he's making his way up, and it's like, at least let's see how they start the third round, because they were going back and forth. It was a pretty good fight, and especially for Cruz, a guy who hasn't been in the ring in 3.5 years, close to 3.5 years, or the octagon. So I would have liked to see him get a little bit more of a fair shake, but you're right. I mean, he was getting pounded. He wasn't going to lose. Like, Cejudo wasn't going to lose that fight.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it might even be harder going back to the corner and kind of stopping and being like out of it, for a little bit, and then having to go back in. I mean, that might have made it even worse. But I think you're right. Cejudo would have won regardless. I mean, you're just really just checking on round or method of victory.
Yeah.
Great retirement. Always loved the post-fight retirement. Thought they kind of should have had a little more pizzazz for it. Dana just kind of thanked him.
Well, I liked, so Dana, presumably they all knew he was going to do this, right?
I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I doubt it was, but Dana was just like, all right, I guess that's it for the interview.
Right. I know. That's what I'm saying.
He was like,
that was a little bit weird.
One more thing. It was very unnatural. It was strange. I agree with you there. I guess my big question on this fight is, is UFC's bantamweight division relevant? Because there's really only a couple of good fighters there. Cejudo is essentially retiring because he has no competition. And Cruz dominated it for so long, obviously lost his last 2 fights, 3.5 years apart there. But for a guy like Cruz in his past, where he's staying out for 2 years and then coming back and winning, or staying out for 18 months and coming back and winning, it's like this clearly isn't the most competitive division. Do you think it even needs to exist? Is there any hype around this division at all?
Yeah, I mean, it always can change with one guy. I mean, that's the beauty of the UFC, I think, and I think that's why it's such a great league, because one fighter can transform a whole division. I think Cejudo probably might be back if the money's a little bit better. I think that's a great bartering move, retiring right on the spot, and probably why there wasn't a lot of pizzazz around it, because I'm sure they want to keep him, in that division, to see the challenger emerge at some point somewhere. So I wouldn't say the division's irrelevant. It probably is right now, but you could always kind of hide the division a little bit and not, promote it as much. But I think Cejudo now is probably, if he wasn't already in that upper tier of, fighter, he thinks he's the best combat sport, fighter ever.
Thinks he's the best athlete of all time.
That's what it was, yeah. I mean, the numbers don't lie for him, but I think now he's probably on the radar of a more casual fan, and more people would buy that fight to see him lose, really.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes what's better than having the dominant guy, because everybody wants him to lose. The only problem is his personality doesn't lend himself to be rooting for him to lose.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, so. That is true. What did you think about that gold medal? When he walked out with it, I was like, oh, that's like the ugliest chain I've ever seen. And then I realized it was a gold medal.
Yeah, no, love it.
It's hideous. Absolutely.
Not as bad as Gaethje taking off the belt, but.
Yeah, well, okay, so I actually love that. Let's get into the Gaethje Ferguson fight. Final fight of the night, just to set it up. Gaethje won by TKO, a punch at 3:39 of round 5. Wins the interim lightweight belt, and as Joe said, pretty much immediately as soon as they put it on, and they had some trouble getting it on him, he just took it off and threw it on the ground.
It was a difficult thing, though. I mean, it's just not nothing to hang it on.
True, but I liked that move. He was like, I'll wait for the real one. It's not real.
Yeah,
it's an interim belt. It's not real.
Hey, it's as good as he can do now. It's not like.
I guess, but it's like, I don't know. I can't think of a good good comparison for it, but it's like two guys in that division have a belt right now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that much.
I like the photo op though. I mean,
trust me, if I got a belt,
you're keeping it on. I mean,
I would retire. I would
regardless
retire
of
right
anything,
there.
you're keeping it on.
Yeah.
I like the thinking for sure. But I would never disrespect the belt. The belt is king.
The belt is king. It's all about the belt.
And what a fight that was.
I mean, just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
you mentioned this in our preview on our podcast, Spurtability. Go listen.
Yeah,
But you mentioned this, that Ferguson just absorbs punch after punch after punch. And Gaethje landed 143 strikes on Ferguson and 100 to the head. And I mean, the guy just like didn't wobble.
You saw every one of them too. I mean, it wasn't that he was reacting to it, but I mean, you saw it. Cardio is unbelievable. Stamina is unbelievable. I thought Gaethje pretty much couldn't fight any more perfectly. It looked like kind of Ferguson had those, those floor roll kind of like crack back kind of leg moves like in his back pocket, and he couldn't really get one of those off clean. Would have loved to see him get one off clean. And I'm gonna defend Ferguson here. One, for sticking with this fight and staying in such good shape throughout. I thought he did have a great point when he was like, listen, I was prepared for a grappling fight. That's what Khabib does. I don't think he was making excuses, but I do think that's a major difference, a fighter. And Gaethje's no slouch grappling, and I think him and Khabib will be a great fight because of that, because of his wrestling experience, which McGregor really had none of.
Yeah.
And that's why he got so pummeled by him. I do think Khabib beats Gaethje, but because Gaethje really threw everything out there, and without the controversial stoppage, it just really didn't seem like Ferguson was going to go away.
Yeah,
he still had to put him away. I understand his strategy was to kind of stay in as long as possible, but that could have been a dangerous match. Kind of trying to out stamina Ferguson, because he really was one of those leg sweeps away from getting him on the ground, and then who knows what happens. But I give Ferguson a lot of credit. I didn't. He was like a little bit combative after the fight when Gaethje came over to him.
I think he was just in the moment.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a problem at all.
Yeah.
But I think you look at that fight, that was pretty much as good of a title fight is going to be. And I hate when it goes down to decision, so I thought it ended at the perfect time.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think Gaethje probably won 4 rounds. But that uppercut by Ferguson was sick, and I thought that was going to change everything, but it really didn't. And I mean, these are two guys that that was, to me, you couldn't have picked a better matchup besides Khabib for that fight. So
it was fantastic. I totally agree with you and Ferguson just about the training, because I'm assuming it's even just like mentally is different, but even like physically, I'm assuming you're doing a different style of preparation when you're trying to physically get ready to be, wrestling the whole time. And you're doing that from November through mid-March, right? And then now you have 5 weeks to just fight for a new guy. Whereas Gaethje, he came in knowing he was going to fight Ferguson. He only had two weeks to prepare, and then he gets the additional 3 weeks. I thought he had the total advantage just in terms of training going into this fight. And then you wonder if a guy gets overtrained as well. Ferguson made weight for 3 weeks ago for that fight that wasn't didn't happen, and he's mentally just on a different level, but I think he's still human, and I think probably overtraining maybe did happen through that fight. A couple other things, just the end. I do want to talk about what your thoughts are at the end. I was surprised they didn't end the fight sooner.
Yeah, I thought it ended at a good time. I think you got to give Ferguson the benefit of the doubt sometimes. So
yeah,
I was okay with it. I thought it was a perfect stoppage.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe that people were questioning the stoppage either. I thought he was dominated the whole fight. He's getting pounded, and so I had no issues with that. So what do you think? What do you think's next for Ferguson? I would assume that he'll do some kind of interim fight or two, and then maybe get the winner of Gaethje versus Khabib.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he was adamant saying, I want to get back in the ring, and I think that's just how he is. I don't think that's like talk from him. I think that's probably exactly what it's going to be. And I still would love to see him fight Khabib.
Yeah.
And you know, especially if he's in that grappling mode, this will make him an even better fighter. So
What about the on Gaethje's end? I know you kind of briefly mentioned it, but do you think he has a shot versus Khabib?
I don't think he does, but I do think it's probably a better matchup than Ferguson would be, just stylistically.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think really anybody in that division has a chance of beating Khabib.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Khabib will end his career undefeated whenever he does choose to end his career. Joe, do you have any final thoughts on the fights? Anything to
That's
wrap
all
it
I
up?
got. Happy Mother's Day. I'm
Yeah.
actually about to go see my grandmother. So
Okay. Yes.
happy Mother's Day to
Happy
all.
Mother's Day to my mom, my two sisters, and that's it. No one else. I don't. If you're listening and you're a mom, this is not for you. This is for my mom and my sisters. No, of course. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Thank you guys for being with us again this week. Let us know some things you might want us to talk about next week. I think we're kind of running into a situation here now where we're not going to have any sports to talk about. So if
It was
you
nice
got,
to have sports back.
it was awesome to have sports
Yeah.
back. Maybe next week we'll do a NASCAR preview just for Joe.
Yes, of course.
But that'll wrap it up. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram. It's at network_SNG, and go check out sngnetwork.com.